He's in the sound of the song that was sung to an empty room. The last light from the sun that was set too soon. In the tremble of the man who never shot his shot. In the gravestone sitting on a worn out plot. In the long lost echo of the white army who never moved on, never let bygones be. In the blood from the war that history forgot. In the unsolved crime, in the memory lost. I never thought it'd come to this. Death of an optimist. Death of an optimist. He's in the cry from a boy who was left unattended. In the agenda of the unoffended, now presenting a horror story or a happy ending, depending on which one of us is pretending. In the shame of a past repeated and reenacted, truth that was redacted, youth that never lasted. In the protest, the news never reported, the American dream that got deported. I never thought it'd come to this. Death of an optimist. Death of an optimist. Death of an optimist. Death of an
I'm so happy I finally have these shields because I had the idea a while back to have these transparent shields in light blue. So I only had clear. It's really easy for me to get some like blue paint and put a little bit of water with it and paint a nice coat over all these bubbles shields. The cool thing about these, there's actually two versions. These weren't designed by me, but they're on a website called Colts, and I'll put the link in the description if you guys want to actually purchase one of these. It was like 98 cents, which is pretty crazy. The difference between two of these, the one on the right has blaster fire damage right here, and the left side is a nice clean shield. This is probably one of the most intricate things I've ever printed in my entire life. It's so crazy seeing all these hexagons on the sphere. Can't wait to see what it's looking like in the feed when it's all done. So let me scrape these off, put them in the wash and cure, and see how they turn out.
Days pass by and my eyes they dry, and I think that I'm okay, till I find myself in a conversation fading away. The way you smile, the way you walk, the time you took to teach me all that you had taught. Tell me, how am I supposed to move on? These days I'm becoming everything that I hate. Wishing you were around, but now it's too late. My mind is a place that I can't escape your ghost. Sometimes I wish that I could wish it all away. One more rainy day without you. Sometimes I wish that I could see you one more day. One more rainy day. Oh, I'm a wreck without you here. Yeah, I'm a wreck since you've been gone. I've tried to put this all behind me. I think I've wrecked all along. Yeah, I'm a wreck. They said time will heal it, the pain will go away. But everything, it reminds me of you, and it comes in waves. The way you laughed when your shoulders shook, the time you took to teach me all that you had taught. Tell me, how am I supposed to move on? These days I'm becoming everything that I hate. Wishing you were around, but now it's too late. My mind is a place that I can't escape your ghost. Sometimes I wish that I could wish it all I'm on the brink of the edge. Remember the words that you said. Remember the life you led. You'd say, oh, suck it all up, don't get stuck in the mud, thinking of things that you should have done. I'll see you again, my loved one.
Trials come, things that are important become really clear.
So I just got home from work, checking on these 3D prints, and this happened literally exactly the same misprint last time. The back one of its build plate, and the front one, I guess there's a little misprint on the front, but the height of it's okay, so that's good. But then it didn't print on the right side, so I have no idea. I even included a longer exposure rate for this session, and it said it was 4 hours and 14 minutes. So I don't know why, but it's just sticking onto the vat of this section, failing at the wrong spots. So at least I have something to go off of. So here's a culprit why the resin printer hasn't been printed out correctly, is because I knew there was a hole in the center of the vat, so I always try to print around it, but it's actually filled with resin and has cured so many times it becomes a huge bump. And so what I'm going to do is get an X-Acto blade and cut out that little bump. And I do have some more patch sheets, so I'm going to patch the underneath side. So I have no idea if it's going to work out, but in essence it should work. So now that I remove this, the only problem I see is it's going to continue, considering that this is going to be the sticky side. A lot less of a problem now since this is removed. So I'll put the resin in and see if it leaks. Hopefully it doesn't, because that would suck. So I'm not going to fill it up to the max level, just enough for it to print out. March 19th at 12:25 in the morning, I just got home from work. Pretty happy because it hasn't been a successful print in like 6 days about, and there's been a lot misprints, like a whole lot. So here's another 36 of these resin printed shields, and some more clone helmets in the back, and some more tactical battle droids. Can't wait to spray paint all these up and add them to the collection. I just got 4 more of those gray base plates for Theed, so I'm gonna start 3D printing a lot of supports. But this time I'm gonna do the supports all vertically, kind of like this. That way it uses less resin as a result, because the majority of the times I've been resin printing supports, they've all been pretty horizontal and flat, using a lot of resin as the supports. But this way, I really think it's going to push this printer to its limits, because there's going to be maybe 50 of these support beams trying to be printed all at once. So here's a pretty interesting misprint. So it didn't stick to the plate, and it just started to go up and down as a slab. So that's unfortunate. It's supposed to be 30 of those support beams, but it just misprinted. So with these support beams, I actually set up the auto feed tube system in the back, so there's a slow drip. As soon as it reaches that level right there, it's going to stop dripping. The last time that happened, it actually overfilled the vat and it was leaking out so much. But I believe it's going to work this time, just because the amount of resin it's currently using, it requires the vat to be full whole print time. And so far it looks pretty promising. I haven't seen that many misprinted bricks on it so far. It looks complete. Nice to see that. So it's the next morning. I like to set things before I go to bed, and then when I wake up, it should be all complete. Pretty good. Except in the center, I tried to avoid putting up any supports where the hole was. It looks like it printed everything also, so that's good. So it was supposed to print out 64 of these support beams, but it misprinted halfway through this one, which is kind of a weird misprint. I've never seen that happen. 8 of these ones in the center right here, which is kind of weird. So let me take this off here. then clean all this up and see how these turn out. So my lunch break from work right now, I usually have an hour to check up on the prints, and it did work. That method of taking out that big bulge in the center and replacing that film. So that worked. It printed on both sides evenly, but I ran out of resin. I've only done this one other time, and that was with that guy up there. But it looks like it printed out the majority of the items, which I'm very happy with. The cool thing about having half prints right here, these are all carbonite figures, and there's some like dismembered bodies right there. My dad last night was saying, oh, that would be awesome if it was sliced in half, or like a lightsaber. And how amazing would that be if I had Darth Maul slicing someone in half? It sounds incredible. So let me take off these prints and fix up this vat and start another print. The next when I come home, around 12 o'clock, I can have all these parts again. Pretty cool. Here's a quick update, all the parts I've printed out within the past 24 hours. So there's a lot right here. So let me start off on the left. Here are some kind of curvy minifigures. What I mean by curvy is the legs actually curve outwards. It accidentally didn't print the other leg, which is unfortunate, but I'm not going to use these in feed, but it's a good test to see how a printed minifigure would look, and it turned out really nice, except for the little imperfections, you know. Then off to the right, you have more of these clone pilot helmets. Really happy about those. I modified them so there's a hole in the center for the eye slit. This is what they used to look like without the eye hole, and it looks a lot better with hole. Beneath those, there's a bunch of these angled heads. I modified these so before they would start cracking because there's no hole in the center. I actually fixed that by cutting in a hole through the logo itself, the TH. So it makes a lot of sense for that to be there. It's kind of similar to Lego, how they have the 3 little holes at the top. And off to the right, I printed out a bunch of these telescope pieces because I wanted to see what they would look like in resin on feed. I did order officially like 200 of these on lego.com, but I don't know why, because the order, it only charged me $98, even though the entire purchase was $420. So I have no idea why didn't it charge me the full amount. Like, it's only going to send me part of the pieces. So I'll spray paint these nice and tan and see how they look in feed. Probably couldn't even tell the difference. And then above that, there's these really cool modified Lego pieces, like Lego minifigures, with half the torso and legs being all skeleton, and the other half being the ordinary figure. This is going to be great for messed up clones, you know, having like exploded body parts everywhere, having their rib cage exposed, literally. So that's gonna be pretty gruesome aspect of it. And then behind those figures, there's the carbonite figures. I was thinking, how can I incorporate these in feed? It would make sense for the droids to want to capture any of the civilians, and since they're gonna capture them, might as well do carbonite, because that would make sense for the enemy to want to have a working force. And how do you condense them in a small, compact area? Probably just freeze them in carbonite. So there's a variety of different versions. The brick style, which I kind of prefer, it's a lot more compact, but there's also the whole carbonite piece. Unfortunately, these did misprint, but the cool thing about that, I could say, oh, these are children or something. That's pretty messed up that they would do that to kids. But it's war. There's a lot of tough things and tough decisions that people do during wartime, literally for no reason, just for power. So it makes sense for this to be something that they would do in the future. So after a few hours of dremeling literally holes in every single one of these posts, I finally have resin printed bricks. This is more of like a concept, but I personally wouldn't recommend other people to do this. It's a lot easier to just buy the pieces from Lego directly. But I just really wanted to try something different and see how it would look in general to have resin printed bricks in feed. They're pretty cool actually, because there's a lot more detail with these ones. Well, I mean detail, I mean imperfections, because they cracked. On the opposite side, I have all the cracked faces, but on this side, it's all the clean. And it works directly with Lego because it's the same dimensions as Lego pieces. So I was able to put the hand railing over the top, which was pretty much the idea for the whole section right here. It's all gonna go across down here. It's pretty cool seeing all these resin printed pieces in this mock together, because these are printed right here. That outpost is printed. Those shield pieces are printed. All the support stands are gonna be printed. And as you can tell, there's actually gonna be a bunch of these made with combinations of my own bricks. So it's gonna be half Lego and half my own. And as a proof of concept, there's already one over there. So it works. here's current state of my assembly line, I guess. So I actually came home from work today, but I made sure to purchase a bunch of these different supplies for different prints I've had. So I got the white for the clone trooper helmets right there, and then the black spray paint to do a first coat on these guys, all these shields. And then I got this lovely antique white. It was the closest color I can get that looked similar to the tan on Lego backpacks. So that's gonna look awesome. And then the bright yellow commando droids, because on those shields it has a hint of yellow. It's all transparent, of course, so I'm gonna put some water with it and dilute it down so it gets really nice. And this spice berry is gonna be the commando droid, and it's gonna be that color. I'm also gonna have this droideka color, but I'm gonna put black with it to really give it a darker tone of brown. The nice thing about this, I use my Walmart discount, so I get 10% off majority of items, so I saved a little bit money there. But going over the assembly line, here's a bunch on off the cure, and just take the whole plate, it's a lot easier. And then come over here, hand paint these sometimes, but it's a lot faster when I spray paint them black. So I'm gonna spray paint these black instead of hand paint them because it takes way too long. And then I'll spray paint outside and then let them sit out there for a little bit. When it's all dry, bring them back inside. And over here is all the 3D prints I've currently printed out the past few weeks. And there's a wide variety of different parts I've used. It's pretty incredible what you're able to do with the resin printer. And all of this, I would say, it doesn't stand out. That's why I try the hardest when designing Lego parts. It's not to stand out or take away from anything, to more just enhance the overall detail that Lego already provides. Like right here on the Obi-Wan figure, I made sure to take similar dimensions off the torso just by eyeballing it, which was pretty cool because it came out almost the exact location where the pauldron's supposed to end. And the awesome thing about that, it doesn't apply just to Obi-Wan, but I've put it on Anakin as well. But there's other Jedi that can utilize that piece as well, so I'm pretty happy about that. The first time I printed this out, it misprinted because I printed it horizontally, but this way I did vertically, like these other dark sabers over here. So when it prints out, it's only printing out the part, which is pretty awesome. And then Tech over here is actually sitting on the edge of the table, and his legs are bent, so both of those legs are printed with bent legs. And there's a lot of posability with that because they can look like they're jumping or running or really doing anything like kneeling down and shooting. It's really cool seeing how unique it is. Off to this figure over here, it's actually a mishmash of different parts of resin. So on the front is the shield I printed out recently and painted it. That helmet right there is the pilot helmet I just showed off you guys a second ago. And if you guys notice, he's not looking straight forward. Instead, he's looking up. So I'm using the tilted head also. I painted those black, and so it's really seamless to show off different angles that the figure is looking at. I'm really enjoying how Anakin looks just with his new armor plate, just because it gives so much more depth to the character when he's already upset. It just adds a lot more detail. Big difference between both of you guys. The Obi-Wan on the left has his neck exposed further, and Anakin to the right doesn't. That's because I cut a hole larger in the pauldron right here to show off that it doesn't have to have the neck part, but then it kind of looks weird Anakin having no neck. It's a very slight nitpick, but it really adds a lot to the overall height of the figure, and it's honestly personal preference at this point. Because I'm just imagining like a line of these guys, maybe 20 or 30, all lined up next to each other. Hopefully I can make a lot of these to provide for you guys. To the right of him, there's a clone commando, and he's utilizing these, or commando rifles, whatever they're called. The pistol and the attachment pistol. I actually didn't design them, which is okay. I might go in and design my own version later on. But sometimes I just want to print out things to have and not spend a lot of time working on a single part. That's what I've been doing so far, and it's nice just to have parts and not have to design them. And here's a good look at all of prints next to each other. And I can't wait to really incorporate these in Theed to show off how they're going to be utilized in different scenes and scenarios. It's going to add so much detail and life to the mock that wouldn't have been capable otherwise without a resin printer. That's what I'm trying to show you guys how insane the resin printer can really add so much detail to your Lego collection, well, without having to really take away from the aspect of it still being Lego. Because a lot of other resin prints on Instagram I always notice that they're like hyper realistic and hyper detailed. I don't want to do that because it doesn't look like Lego. At that point, it's just another resin print. But if you take your time to really fine tune the dimensions, it should look like it fits in the same universe, which I can say I've achieved that successfully, which I'm very happy about. I'd love to know what you guys think about that. Here's a sneak peek at all the prints that I'm gonna print out next week with this resin. So earlier today, actually yesterday, 5 of these bottles came in, and my dad and I opened up like a blind bag, and he got a few grays and I got some clears. But I finally have some white resin, and I'm really excited because I can 3D print a bunch of clone helmets and different clone accessories in white now. So that's gonna be really cool. And then 2 of the gray and 2 of the clear. I kind of wish it was more clear than gray because clear has a lot of upsides, versus gray I feel like has been having a lot of misprints. On these other shelves, it's a bunch of my used resin that I've used all these bottles. So I've had 9 bottles used so far, and I've been 3D printing around 3.5 months to 4. I set it up so it's all gray at the bottom, and up top it's all the other ones. So 2 clear and 1 aqua. And right here is around $200+ of resin. And I tried to think, so after everything I've made so far, would it be worth $200 paying for these individual parts? And I would say yeah. Plus I also learned a lot of new things about printing with resin. Don't worry, it's not going to be replaced by all resin. It's just a lot of cool accessories are going to be printed out of resin. And soon this whole shelf is going to be filled, which is going to be pretty expensive, but the things I'll make with them, it's worth it.